everybody, welcome back to Quest Junkies. It is season 2 of the QuestCast. It's been a long time since I've done this. I am Patch, your ever humble dungeon master. Normally, I play the role of everybody else, but today I am reprising the role of podcast host. Now, kicking off season 2 of the QuestCast, I am joined today by a wonderful friend of Quest Junkies. My dear friend, please introduce yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Safia and I am a community manager as well as a game master based in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. And I have also written on the side. During the day, I am a corporate goblin, but the rest of the time I am out creating, trying to bring together to life representation of Middle Eastern culture through tabletop gaming.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I was hoping to get you in season 1, but our calendars never aligned, so it's great to finally be here with you now. So,
thanks for having me.
No problem. So let's start at the very beginning. What was the thing that really drew you into TTRPGs first? How did you get started in this crazy world that we inhabit?
Yeah, so for me, it was kind of one of the things that a lot of people expected me to already be into. Just because I do have a reputation of being quite nerdy. And I had people coming up to me, some friends and acquaintances just after each other asking me, so hey, do you play D&D? Do you DM? There's a group that really wants someone to DM for them. And I was like, this sounds like something I should do. I kind of always wanted to play D&D. It was just one of these things that didn't really align well, didn't find the time, didn't find the people. And then a friend of mine started up a D&D group. It didn't last. We had one session. That was enough to just get hooked. And then I immediately just jumped into DMing. And from there, I just continued on until today. That was around 2016.
Wow, okay. 2016. I didn't even know what D&D was back then. From there, how did you eventually stem into actual play as a more specific branch of what we do?
So actual play is far more recent. So it started out with me where I would watch Critical Role just like everyone else, and then that's kind of where I realized what actual play was. Then I started just logging into Twitch and seeing that random people do this. It's not just, by the time I knew Critical Role, they were already a pretty big production. And I didn't really think about pursuing actual play for myself, actually. It just didn't feel like something I thought of for myself. And then I was invited to, my very first actual play stream was with Satine Phoenix. At the time, she had her Kickstarter launch and she asked me to join. And I joined and I met some pretty cool people through the stream. And then it kind of felt like, oh, wait, this is something that is pretty fun. Of course, I can't say that it was easy or anything, but it kind of just awakened like, oh, this would be fun. Then I started looking out for communities that did charity streams, and I would join those. So ones like Roll for Good. So I would join their streams, and they would have me on as a GM every now and then. Then not long after, I found you guys.
Yeah.
And you guys would be both you as well as Phoenix.
Yeah, Phoenix Iwaki is someone who connects many, many people in our wider circle.
Actually, retract that. Phoenix found me. So Phoenix actually approached me because of some of the games that I did on Roll for Good. And through him is where I found Quest Junkies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And of course, anyone who is familiar with Phoenix Iwaki and Safia's brief introduction to Phoenix Iwaki, we both portrayed characters in the same story, which ended up being, spoiler alert, Phoenix Iwaki's first TBK.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit because that was a whole thing. But yeah, that's amazing. We've been friends for a while and I just learned a lot about you that I didn't know, so that's cool. So let's get a bit more specific. So when it comes to storytelling, whether it be in TTRPGs or in any kind of medium, like what would you say your favorite kinds of characters are to play, or what the favorite kinds of stories to tell specifically?
So my favorite kind of stories to tell are really going to be something that represents a people or a culture. And through that, I mean, it really embodies or takes from an existing culture, particularly my own. I'm sure a lot of people feel like this, but You get kind of tired of seeing fantasy being the exact same template of pseudo-medieval. Fantasy in its most common found state doesn't really represent anyone, which is fine, nothing against that. But then that comes to be a part where you kind of want to look at something and say, oh, that's something I grew up with. Oh, that's something that I recognize. And particularly in Arabic culture, when it comes to fantasy and, well, content in English and content in general, there's not that much. So telling these stories that connect history and culture into tabletop gaming and books, that's kind of like, if I can in the future, in like 30 years, look back and say that I've done this in multiple mediums, then I think I would have said I lived a great life no matter what.
That's a hell of a goal to aspire to. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I agree. Like, it's kind of almost like a meme at this point, how like certainly in things like D&D, even down to something like, oh, there's a Scottish NPC, he just happens to be a dwarf, and that's the accent that he gets because everyone gives dwarves Scottish and like accents, and like I always try and go against that, and like sometimes I'll try and go the complete opposite. For example, I like the idea of going completely the opposite way and giving like a very high noble-born elf, like someone of great prestige, give them an accent of someone from Liverpool, because it kind of works in a weird way, but I kind of love it.
Why not? It makes it interesting. And it really, I like breaking those stereotypes. An accent is not really a personality, and we need to shy away from that. And it's fine if it's just a for fun game, especially if you're just doing it in your own home, then it doesn't matter. But then if you really want to tell a deep story, then you really want to think about this stuff.
Absolutely. We mentioned earlier about the game that we shared together. So jumping off what we've just talked about, your character's name was Diala. So what was the inspiration for Diala?
So I've always wanted to play a druid. I haven't actually had a chance to play that much. I've mostly just been GMing. Not quite a hardware GM, but a mostly GM. So when I wanted to create a druid, especially in a setting like Space Spelljammer, which is in space, it just made it fun to create something that is kind of different than what you'd expect of a druid. In that setting with Spelljammer, animals are not quite as easily seen. So one of the first ideas for Diala was that she is referencing animals that she has seen in books more than seen in real life. So they're not all quite right. So that was kind of one of the first ideas with her. But then obviously that's a mechanic, that's a class. So then when creating her character, I really wanted someone that is deep in a mourning state, but I didn't quite know what that was yet. I wanted her to have some dark past, and at the first, this was all I had. And then Phoenix, John, was the one that kind of helped put it together. I proposed that her husband had died, and then one of the secrets is that he actually is alive, and that she's not aware of that. And then from there, the idea that she is undead also came to kind of just really delve deep into that mourning state. And a lot of it was built because of how fantastic John is at helping you put together a character for this, which was a lot of fun. And that is kind of where he went to sit asking me if it's possible to connect my backstory with others. And then we decided to connect your backstory with mine. And even with Diala, where like it's set in space, so Arabic culture and all that is kind of a big question mark. But I still kind of tried to flavor it that way, not just with the name, which means light of the moon. And then that ties into the husband's name, Badr, which means moon. So that was the reasoning behind the name. And how I kind of tried to add names from her home that were tied to a bit more of Lebanese culture. And that was fun to kind of add in. Even if no one were to see it, it's for me.
And that's it at the end of the day. Like, I think a lot of times I have to remind myself, even though like we create content for other people to enjoy, we're still meant to enjoy it as well. So I think it's always important to include little things that, might get missed, but it doesn't matter because it's more for yourself. It's funny, looking at my list of questions, the next one that I have, pretty sure I already know the answer to this, but what's been one of the most powerful or unexpected moments you've had with this character?
Well, yes, I don't think my answer will have any surprises here. So with Diala, it started off as just as this silly character that everyone's aware that there's more to it, just because she is in fact a ghost. And your character was very cautious, not showcasing what exactly had been happening with the others. Then by the time there was finally a reveal that your character is actually named Bedr and is actually her long-lost husband that she thought was dead all this time, and she's undead and come back. Before any of that could be reconciled, before any of that could really fully be role-played out, that's when we had a TPK.
It wasn't just that. The session before was...
Yes.
The untimely pass.
Yes. Before the TPK, Diala died. But the reason why I go back to the TPK being more shocking is because when Diala died, it was very quick and sudden, and it was like a side fight, like not a main fight. And that kind of made the pain more. And I had gone in just accepting that, okay, it's a short game and my character's dead, and this is the end for it. Then behind the scenes, John and I worked on a mechanic to bring her back as a warlock to a god who was mainly focused on mothers and sons, which brings to the second part that was just painful, is that when Diala had died first time, she was actually pregnant. So that goes in very well with the kind of like vengeful, angry spirit she would have come back to. And canonically in my head, as the rest of the party died while Diala was already kind of dead for the second time.
Who's counting?
That TPK ended the story there. But in my headcanon, Diala came back again. And then maybe this time she actually remembers that she found Bedr, but cannot find him again.
Sets off on a new quest to bring him back, maybe, or who knows? I have regrets about how that campaign ended, but at the same time, it made total sense at the time. I don't think I'd go back and change it, even though I'd love to be able to play out the rest of that story and all the what ifs and what could have been. But in a beautiful, sad way, it was the right ending.
Yes, I mean, we had 5 sessions total.
I think so, yeah.
I was in 3 of them, and we really got a lot of emotion going, and we were at a table that was... The 3 of you were comfortable with each other, the 3 players, but I was new to it. So to be able to kind of jump into heavy emotion of mourning, loss, and child death, and forgetting a spouse, and all that in 3 sessions, even though none of it took place between the characters, but to the audience, that was fun. And I regret that we didn't get to reach a conclusion, but I don't regret how it ended.
No, absolutely. So talking about moments like that and other moments that you've no doubt had, like as a GM as well, has your time in actual play, however brief, has that changed how you approach storytelling? Do you think that experience? Because I know for me, it certainly did in ways that I couldn't have even imagined.
Yeah, it really did. The same things, it made me be aware of the experience of the story I'm telling and the game and how it's progressing from an audience perspective. But then it kind of really tones in that what's fun for someone to watch as an audience is also what's fun for someone to play as a player. That was one of the big things. The second one, it kind of really taught me that improv is not as scary as I would have initially thought. So I'm a very type A person. I'm someone that needs everything structured and organized and planned and cleared. If you want to hang out with me, you usually need like 10 business days notice. Otherwise, I will decline. I'm not as frigid as I once was due to many things in my life, but one of them being that kind of using improv more frequently in my life just showed me like, okay, what's going to go wrong? So what if you make it up, but you keep the game progressing? So what if you forgot a rule, but then everyone had fun? So what if you went with what's cool rather than what is logical? Or if the players decided to go a totally unexpected direction, so what? Just because I didn't prepare for it does not mean that I'm a bad GM. Because in my head, if I didn't prep for it, then that means I didn't prep enough. That means that I failed to prep. That means that I failed as a GM. So that was kind of the anxious, riddled thoughts in my mind. And it took streaming to kind of realize that that's not quite how it works, just because on a stream, you can't give in to the panic that'll set in. And my mind is usually a panic at all times. It's never really quiet in there. There's like a lot of screaming things all at once. But then when I GM, it usually has less voices, if that makes sense. And when I relaxed and let improv be a main aspect of GMing, which it sounds like it's super simple. Like, yes, improv is part of GMing, but it really took a while for me to actually like let that sink in. It kind of became a bit more peaceful up there. So it was like, I don't need that many voices because I don't need to keep discussing things in my mind to make a decision. I can just yes and things, and that's okay, and that's fun.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. The power of yes anding is always going to be one of my strongest tools. I think I want to talk to you a little bit about community, because this is something that I don't always get a chance to speak to people about. As someone who runs a community like Quest Junkies, I also do community management in a sense in my professional life now, in the video game industry. And that's a whole different avenue, which is taking some getting used to, certainly. How have you taken to sort of having the expectations of a community, like when it comes to like the storytelling things that we do? Like for me, for example, at Quest Junkies, over the last 12 to 18 months, we had a spike in popularity because of one viral TikTok that was not supposed to go viral, but it did because of you guys watching.
And you don't get to pick what goes viral.
True. Very, very true. And, it's been interesting, like for us, because we've been on a bit of a hiatus as of late. I've moved house, I've moved jobs. A lot of the players have had a busy last sort of 6 months, and it's been an interesting journey keeping the community engaged and making sure that we're still meeting their expectations. I think we're doing okay. We'll see. But how?
I think you're doing wonderfully.
Thank you very much. How have you found your journey with managing a community in that sense?
So my community is quite different from Quest Junkies. For starters, it didn't begin with the intention of building a community. It began with, I want more people to play with. So how can I find these people? So I thought the logical thing is to look for an existing community. And I was focused on in-person, so I just want to preface that. So I was looking up on meetup groups and things like that, and I did find one, and they looked like they had active games twice a month. That seemed pretty good, a good number of members. So I got excited, and then I filled out the form that they had, which basically talked about explain your gaming experience. They talked general video games, board games, and they went into tabletop games. I'd like to note that at this point, I had written for an MMO, and this will make sense why I'm bringing it up later. And I've always been a gamer, as you are aware. And so the form, I wrote all of that, and I wrote that I'm a GM, I wrote all of this. And then I got a rejection from the community with the only explanation is that they only take in serious gamers. So I wanted to understand why. What do you mean serious gamers? I like to think of myself as a pretty serious gamer, I think. So I just scanned to see who is in this membership that deemed me as unserious. And I noticed that it was all men. Now, had they rejected me and said that this is an all men's community, I would totally respect that. I would not have judged. But instead, they simply said that I'm not a serious gamer. So I decided I'm going to make my own community of all women. So it started out with vengeance.
Best way to do it.
So I started doing sessions for all women, and I would hold workshops for mixed groups. Like the workshops were mixed, but most of the sessions were only women. And I felt very silly because in the workshop sessions, I really didn't think anyone would sign up. I just posted that I'll be at a random cafe if anyone wants to join. It was on the Meetup app. And I went to that cafe. I had asked their permission before and everything. And I just put a DM screen and I had the books. And I'm just there on my own, like a little idiot, about 20 minutes before the meetup was supposed to happen. And I had only put the cap at 5 people because I thought, no way I'm going to get more than 5. I ended up screaming at a table of 25 people.
Wow, 25.
Yes. And this was at a random cafe that was like they had a table big enough for the 25, but it's still in a cafe. The screaming part is just because I needed to project my voice and not very good when there's music and all that. So I did not expect that. And people kept passing by like, oh, is this the game from Stranger Things? Oh, is this the game from Big Bad Theory? And then they would just be like, can I join? And they just sit. And then that started a bigger community than what I expected, because the all women's group was still small enough that it was mostly word of mouth, where it was just women I know plus their friends. Although, don't get me wrong, that was still a good size. We were 40 women at that point. But then the mixed group really made it even larger. We capped at around 80 people, but I'm not going to say we were 80 active people. Total overall, the Discord has reached around 100-ish, but active, I would say we have about 40 to 50 today. This whole scene of the vengeance and the random workshop, that was 2017. So I'd only been playing D&D and DMing for about a year. Where I live, we have a building called Ithra, which is well known for having like workshops and things like that. It's a giant structure with library facilities and all that stuff. So we would get a room for free there. And the cap in those rooms is 25. I, again, thought that's more than enough. I kept getting requests for sign up where it would actually exceed the 25. And I just had to tell people, I'm sorry, join the next one. I'm sorry, join the next one. And I wasn't doing anything much. I was literally just explaining how to create a character in D&D. Not as good as any of the wonderful creators on YouTube. And I don't know why all these people just came to see me talk. But I think it was just great to just gather in place with other people that are interested in the same thing. And one of my favorite moments is when the security guard of this library got so curious that he joined us to learn how to play a character, got overwhelmed, apologized, and then left.
Wow.
So that was just, it was a great experience. We would hold events where I would book out an entire cafe, and we would have 5 to 7 GMs. I think the most we had was 7 GMs, and people sign up to play games. This was like the height of our activity right before COVID. And then COVID hit. And we tried to do things online, but it just didn't really work out. People were not as interested in the online. So the community really kind of only had I would say, proper about less than 2 years of being active, like fully active. Then COVID hit, and then right at the end of COVID, I got married, and then I got accepted for my master's. Then I went for my master's in Spain. So that was a couple of years where the community was not really as active as it once was. However, it didn't completely die out. People still use the Discord to chat, meet up, to play games. I did end up expanding to not just women. So at first, the vengeance shtick lasted a bit, but then I was like, you know what? I can't just be only women just because of like a couple guys that were whatever they were. But we do still have, out of respect for everyone's preferences, we do still have female-only space and male-only spaces, as that's quite important in our culture. Especially with something as raw and vulnerable as improv, you really want a space for that. I don't know how the all-men games go. I'm told that they're mostly like wargaming, but whatever floats their boat. For us, it ends up being very emotional, very vulnerable, and I don't think we'd have that if everyone wasn't super comfortable. Going to today, we're picking up again with activity, with me not being the only GM that runs games. There's quite a lot of GMs now, and I run a game twice a month, every other Monday at my home. That's all women, and it's West Marches style, where anyone can sign up as long as they're available for each game, and the story will continues. It's Sodo, Delicious, and Dungeons, so that it makes sense to just keep going into very different scenarios. With all this, my community has connected with the Bahrain community, with the greater Middle Eastern community. We've even had nice chats with the Lebanese community and the Egyptian community and the Qatar community and the Kuwait community. So it's quite nice to find all of this across. And of course, the biggest one is the one in Emirates. They're the oldest, and quite a lot of them was founded by expats there. But yeah, it's the oldest one. So in a nutshell, that's everything on my community. And it's also called the Crossroads Guild. It is focused on in-person and not online. So even in terms of signing up, usually it's people that I have in some shape or form known, or someone in the server knows. Just because in-person meetups, you want to try and stay a bit safe.
Amazing. It is always fascinating for me to learn about more in-person focused stuff, because I've never really played in person. So that's an avenue that I have yet to explore properly. So
we need to fix that.
Absolutely. It's been on my
I'm coming to
to-do
London
list.
this weekend.
I won't be in London this weekend. But
I know. But
I mean,
we'll make it work. We'll somehow make it work.
yes. I mean, there are plans being discussed, not to spoil anything too much, but there will be some sort of QJ in-person event happen this year, I'm sure. The question is where and when. We'll find out at some point. But yeah, no, I'm always fascinated by just learning the difference of an in-person session, because I really enjoy doing these online sessions, and it's great because it allows me to, aside from everything else, just hang out with my friends that are not from around here, which is amazing. But I would love to have that experience of feeling the energy when you're in the same place at the same table. You're able to look someone properly in the eye as you role play with them and things like that. I love hearing about stuff like that. And quite honestly, that story of how your community came to be was not only fascinating, but I think it's also quite inspiring. So thank you for telling me about that.
Thank you.
I can't wait to hear more about it in the future. Some people struggle with this question sometimes, but if you can summarize it as best you can, what does storytelling mean to you?
Ooh, that's a pretty good question. So to me, storytelling is about awakening emotions. So whether you are reading or whether you are watching a show, you awaken an emotion in whoever is participating in the story, either as a reader or a viewer, or in the case of tabletop gaming, the DM or the player. At the end of the day, whether it's a comedy or a horror or a romance, all you ever want to do with each word on the paper or each word spoken is to evoke emotion so that people can relate, people can understand. It's why we want to consume something with suspense, or where we enjoy guessing where it'll go next. If you're not feeling emotion from something, then you're really not enjoying it, and it's not a story anymore. Otherwise, you might as well just read a dictionary or an encyclopedia or a history book. So really, it's inspiring and feeling emotion.
I like that answer. Completely agree. You talked a little bit about your culture being quite a big source of inspiration. Are there any other sources of inspiration that have sort of helped build out your approach to storytelling over the years?
I grew up reading different fantasy books, from classical novels classical novels to fantasy, and that kind of really shaped how I write things. So I do love writing something that will play upon a little bit of romance, a little bit of having that familial relationship. For example, I really loved reading Little Women as a kid. So that kind of encompasses how I like to view how romance and family can be written. Another inspiration video game wise would be the original Dragon Age. So the original Dragon Age series was something that was so much fun, because it was one of the first games where I really felt like decisions did matter. And I'm talking about like Dragon Age Origins, because that was the first game I played that a lot of decisions you made truly had impact. So it was sort of what made me fall in love with choose your own adventure books, but in video game format. So Dragon Age is a huge influence on that. And more recently, games like Baldur's Gate. But even taking another medium is plays and theater. Just because how over the top it can be, and then bursting into song and all of that can be very fun to take on for a tabletop roleplay game. Just because I feel like you are meant to occasionally, or maybe frequently, get over the top. And with theater and how it's designed and how it's meant to be consumed in person, with actors seen from far away, so they really do go really over the top. And so that, I think, is fun to use it as a mechanic for how to portray a character. And the pauses that they use in theater is something that I enjoy using in tabletop gaming too.
As a creator in this space, is there anything you can't create without? Like specific tools, a little like dice rituals, snacks? This is a safe place, we don't judge here. If you have any super secret snacks or anything.
So my boring answer is coffee. But then I can't exist, period. So it's not just create. I'd say my more fun answer is, so one way I like to outline is kind of I go into a beautiful mind sort of scenario where I would have too many post-it notes all over the place. I've learned how to keep them secure so my cats don't steal them. And I would connect them with lines, and it really looks like I'm trying to solve a murder. But it's what I would need, because then it would go like, okay, so the players can get to here, and then from there, they can branch out and go here and here and here. I'll let them use either, but which one would I rather? Maybe I'd rather use this, so this is going to be a different line. And then from here, they could go back. And then, but what happens if they double back? Because I like to write where the world is on a timeline, meaning the world is still moving. So if you go one direction, the story is still continuing. So if you choose to waste time, everything is counted by a number of days. So then I have a timeline underneath based on where the players go, and then I sort of like activate it. Now I have made this digital, but I still end up not being happy with the digital, and then I'd go back and make a physical one to be like, no, it needs to be in front of my face.
Oh God, I love that. Because funnily enough, like that whole sort of like notice board full of post-it notes and things, like that's actually one of my favorite story tropes. I've used it a lot in characters that I've made, the most recent being the character I played in QuestCast's Candela Obscura as a detective, and he has an ability that allows him to go into his mind palace, which is very similar to, I think the BBC version of Sherlock Holmes did that, where Sherlock Holmes goes into his mind palace and it's where he stores all his information. But the way I pictured that was just like that, a massive notice board with all these threads and things. Because I love that image. So yeah, love that.
It's like the things I struggle without. So when I'm traveling and writing, I clearly cannot, like at the airport, just take out a bunch of post-it notes from nowhere and then just start putting them on the floor. And I mean, I could, but it wouldn't be acceptable socially, I think. And maybe security will be concerned.
People would stare.
Yeah, but I miss it. Like, it just feels like if only I could, then I would be unleashed. The reality is I write just the same. It's more of a comfort at this point. And then third, I ideally have one of my cats around, ideally, if not.
Very, very fair. All right, I think it's time for the debut of a new round as per season 2. We have a lightning round of questions, so I'm not going to ask all of these, just a bunch of these. First answer that comes to mind. Okay, dice goblin or dice minimalist?
Goblin.
Okay, interesting. What's your NPC voice that always makes everyone break character?
So I can get very, very high-pitched to the point where noise cancellation usually really goes all the way up. So it would just disappear. So I would just randomly talk like this! And it just makes everyone lose their character and just completely go off. I gave warning, I apologize.
No. It makes me laugh because that's the voice we use to make our puppy excited. So if she were in this room right now, she would be doing circles. Let's say, hypothetically, your dice can talk. What's the last thing that they screamed at you?
You're only allowed to roll well as a GM. You'll roll terribly as a player.
If your GM style was a movie genre, what would it be?
Not a movie, but this is how it's been described.
Okay.
Dragon Age meets Fire Emblem.
Oh.
Video games, but that's how it's been described.
I love that. That's a great combination. Hell yeah. What kind of magic item do you personally deserve in real life?
I'm sure everyone says this, but bag of holding would really improve the quality of my life tremendously. I know it's like a logical, boring item, but I want one. It would just elevate everything about how I live. I'll never have to worry about luggage. I'll never have to worry about being unable to carry things because I can carry everything. And my anxious mind can take everything I want at all times. I can just travel with my house, basically. And my cats for like 9 minutes at a time.
You don't need to convince me. I'm sold. Bag of holding for you. What's your favorite story trope that you'll never stop using, even if people demand it of you?
Just making a lot of really hot NPCs.
I mean, it's
not a trope, story trope, but it's a trope of what I keep using. So a lot of my NPCs are very attractive. People have slightly complained, but not in a way where they wanted me to change it. But it did mean that when I introduced a non-attractive NPC, people were far more interested. So it's kind of like a really nice thing to use. And then I get to know each player's type. And if I don't have enough prepared, I'll just put their type out and be like, there you go. This is today's session. This hot NPC, you're welcome. That's what we're focusing on today.
I think to this date, I have not met a single GM that does not only make hot NPCs. It's not even just a trope. That's just a guaranteed fact across all.
No, I have met some GMs that use a really good balance of attractive and unattractive, but I am not them.
No, it sounds boring and inconvenient. No, everyone should be hot. Okay, final prompt. Finish this sentence. The best TTRPG sessions always have a little bit of blank.
Inappropriate jokes was the first thing that came to mind. And then second, lots of tears.
I mean, that sounds like the ultimate QuestCast session, if you ask me. We always have both. Okay, we are into the last section. So before we wrap up here, I'd just like to ask you, what are you most excited about in either your current projects or anything upcoming that you have?
So my friends and I have started our own tabletop gaming company that we are very much excited to launch, but we've had life happen and delays, but I'm still very excited, and we are working towards it quite diligently. So we are going to be creating a D&D 5e campaign that is focused on pre-Islamic Arabia and the myths around that. And we have already filmed and finished a short season 1 of Vampire the Masquerade, The Way by Night. And we are filming how-to videos on D&D in Arabic, as well as VTM in English, and a couple more. As a system gets more popular locally, we'll try and create content in Arabic for it. So we're hoping to do VTM in Arabic later when there is a translated version of the books. There's already a translated version of D&D, so that's great. So that's really what we're excited about. And we're hoping to just have fun with it and create something that we're proud of and help build more community with friendships of people that are into the same thing. We recently went to the Comic-Con in Emirates, which connected us with a host of people that are kind of doing the same thing in their own way. So while we're focused high fantasy, I found people that are creating projects that are similar but with cosmic horror. So seeing, not only am I excited for my own project, but I'm excited for all the other projects of other creators from the region that are also doing similar things. And it feels great that we can grow the space of representation of Middle Eastern history and Middle Eastern culture, because there's so much. There's so much that we really needed to segment it just to be able to represent anything properly. I could GM things based on our history and culture for a lifetime and not finish.
An inexhaustible well of inspiration and storytelling. Sounds perfect to me. What do you hope the audience that we have today watching this video takes away from listening to your story?
I think I would really like people to just take a chance at doing things their own way. Okay, I didn't find enough people to play with here, and I got rejected from a community, but I built my own, and now I'm very lucky to have an endless supply of players. I can just post a game and there's always going to be like 1d4 plus 1 people that'll show up. That's never really an issue, and there's huge interest where I just post somewhere and then everyone will help each other out on all of their nerdy projects, and that didn't come with a plan. And I say this as someone who thinks that you shouldn't do anything without a plan, but there's really no stakes in this, so why not just try something and see how it works out. Try it in your scale, try it in your availability and level, and you really never know where it'll go. If you had told me when I first picked up D&D that I'll have an active community of mostly women that can come over to my house every other week and we play our silly little game and tell the most outrageous, fun stories, I would have said, no, that's not going to happen. How do you plan for that? So just try.
Hell yeah. I'm seconding all of that. So last thing, the most important, please tell our wonderful audience where we can find you and where we can support all of your creative endeavors.
Thank you. So You can find me on the platform formerly known as Twitter, as well as Instagram, as Safia Aldulaijan. And I'm also on Blue Sky with the same handle. If you just look up SAFIA_D, you should find me. And yeah, that would be all the places. I'm active mainly on Instagram, I think, but I mostly end up posting tabletop stuff on Twitter and Blue Sky. I don't know why this distinction happened, but here we are.
Here we are. Well, thank you, Safia. It's been not only lovely to have you as a guest, but just lovely to catch up with you. It's been too long, and I hope we get to do this again.
Yes.
So that does it for this opening session of QuestCast Season 2. Thank you, everyone who's joined in and watched. We hope you've enjoyed it and are excited to see what else we have coming up for this season. It's going to be really exciting. I can't wait. Some of the people I've got booked in, I'm really excited about. Check all the links in the description for where you can find Quest Junkies and where you can find Safia and all the other amazing stuff that's going on. And thank you so much for joining us. All the love to you at home. And if there's anything else left to say, keep questing, QJs. Yes. Bye.
Bye.